Hello, dear friends. I
Hello.
am Holly Elisa Bruno. I'm with Denise and with Priscilla, and they'll introduce themselves in a sec as they wish. We are three women who have been through some significant challenges in our lives, and those significant challenges add up to trauma. And trauma affects each one of us differently, but also it affects the brain in many similar ways. And we live in a time, whatever country you're in, wherever you're listening to us from. You could be in Puerto Rico, you could be in Brazil, you could be in China, you could be in England,
Where
wherever you are.
where'd we
Yeah,
hear
go
Rob
ahead.
Fox from?
England, Cambridge,
England,
England.
right.
Yeah. Iceland, oh my gosh, Sri Lanka, India. You could be in all these places, and yet trauma will affect you. So we do this podcast once a week, and we invite wholeheartedly whoever wants to join us to share and reflect with us and feel with us to the extent you feel safe doing that, and what it's like to have experienced difficulties and trauma as children, as people growing up, and now choosing. And this is what this program is about. We walk each other home because we choose how can we help each other get through these tough times. And we've been doing this for years, I think about 5, 6 years now. Priscilla's joined us most recently. Denise has been with us for a long time. It's great. And if you're joining us today, welcome. We're really glad you're here. And we welcome you to join us in person if you want to, or it seems to me that people are content just listening to the program, and that's what you need. We're happy with that too. So we're going through a lot. The three of us are in the United States. And we've got a lot going on here, but I lived and taught in England. I taught at a teacher training school in Winchester, England, and I also taught at the University of Southampton. I got to know the culture pretty well. And so I'm just going to start with something that um, troubles me and it also touches me. And that is England. If you had a, guys, if you were to give a word to what the culture in England is like, what would you say? Don't worry about getting it right or wrong. What's the word for the British culture?
I think of them as kind of boring. I don't know why I think that, but like, plain,
Plain,
straight.
boring, stiff upper lip. Yeah, Priscilla, what about you, sweetie?
I think it's honestly, I think it's diversity, diverse, interesting.
Yeah, listen, what you guys are both saying is true. And when I think of Britain, I think of the history of colonialism. They went all over and mastered, and that's the awful word. They mastered colonialism all over the place. I've been in India working a lot. And boy, what happened in India as a result of colonialization or Kenya, all these places. It's kind of like Puerto Rico and United States and what we did. So, but I also want to say that it's got this curious thing called a monarchy. Got a prince and a princess, and it's got these kids, and here's the deal. It's got this man, the artist formerly known as Prince. Well, what they've got is a prince formerly known as Prince, what, Edward? And he was one of the
Andrew, right?
Andrew. All right, Edward is the younger one. That's fine. I'm making amend. Thank you, Andrew. And he was heavily involved, apparently, not just with Epstein and abuse of women, but he also used, that is the accusation, he used his position to make all kinds of deals. Now, I'm not going to talk about that because I don't have specifics on that. But the problem is, what we have here is a member of the royal family who is seriously enough involved that he has been arrested by Thames police. That doesn't happen unless there's serious data. Now, here's why I'm angry. Do we have serious enough data on the president of the United States?
Yes, we do.
Does he have
Absolutely.
34 felony counts that were
Yes.
held? Jeez, I'm crow. And what on earth is happening here? I mean, I just get outraged about that. What about you guys?
Yeah, I'm outraged too. I mean, there is one
Yes.
human from here, isn't it? Weissman, is he from here? Or?
Oh, Wexman, the guy that they just, what were you thinking about him, Denise?
Yeah, is he from the US?
Yes, I think
Okay.
so.
So, I mean, things I think are slow, steady progress, here in the US. I really believe we're going to start seeing them falling down too.
What do you think, Priscilla?
I don't know what to think, right? I don't know what to think when we already have gone too long with
Mhm.
power, right? With power, with in power control. And it can feel as our voice, it's not loud enough, or it's not being heard, or it's not. So for me, I feel like this has been going on for many, many years, and like history repeats itself and it continues to repeat itself. And just because technology has advanced, we're able to now see more things. Um, and yes, so that's my thoughts in all this. And maybe that's why I'm also a little bit tired, seeing everything that's happened. Mexico, it's right now going through, they're saying if American people, it's over there, to make sure they're staying in their resorts. So it's like, yeah.
Right. After our conversation last week, and if people listening, if you weren't part of the conversation last week, we came to a big difference. And I think it's an important one to note. Both Priscilla and Denise were saying, I've had it. And essentially, you guys were saying, I'm done with it. I'm so sick and tired of this. And Priscilla was talking about using the word, not resistance. It was, what was the word, Priscilla, that you were using?
Resilient.
Resilient, but there was another R word, and it was about what we're facing, not trauma, but and not resistance. But the thing that I took away from that conversation was two things are true at the same time. Number one, you two have stated loud and clear, I am sick and tired of this. I hear you. And we need to talk about that. What happens when trauma survivors get on overload? And how do we deal with that? And how can we help each other? And my stance was different, and that's okay too. And my stance is no matter what's going down, I'm going to say trauma because I kept it secret for so long and I wasn't allowed to talk about it for so long. It's really important for me to say, yes, I am a survivor of trauma because that keeps me sane. But it's a both end. And I thought about it afterwards and I wanted to honor you guys because you're speaking for other people, I'm sure. When you say, Denise, you said, I've had it, I'm sick and tired of this. Priscilla, you said the same thing. I'm just, oh my God. I face resistance. Maybe that was the word. I face resistance in my life.
What was it? What was it?
We'll
I'm
get
trying
it.
to
I
remember the
can't
word.
think of it either.
We'll get it. But and I just
We
wanted
will.
to
It'll come to us.
honor you two because that if we're talking about how we can support each other walking home, you two guys articulated something that I don't know how those survivors of Epstein have kept it together for so long. Have you thought about that? I
Yeah,
went
I
out to
mean
the library.
they must have had some support. I mean, some of them. If you don't have support, you can. I mean, I've always had support. Like I
Mhm.
talked about it. Well, like in high school, I didn't have support. I talked about it in high school with my gym teacher, and she ignored it.
Did
And
she
that my
respond at
abuse.
all, Denise?
Uh,
Because you were being abused by guys in the neighborhood, right?
First, then my stepfather for years, for a couple years. So, uh, and that's who I told my PE teacher on. So I
Back in the
didn't
day,
have
that
support
was
then. I
that.
did get support. I think I got support when I joined that AOL group of other survivors.
And that's when you were an adult. So when you were a kid, you were
Yeah.
telling the truth when you were a teenager, Denise.
Yeah.
You were
I was
asking for
telling the
help.
truth, but I wasn't getting support.
How
Yeah.
did people respond, if at all?
Mostly they didn't want to know. It seemed like. And probably because 1 in 3 of them are also survivors. And in order to empathize with my situation, they would have to face their own. And I think, back then, not very many people did.
Or they were probably also a perpetrator,
Or a perpetrator, right?
right? Um, I think also that fear, because a lot of times um these individuals tend to brainwash, and because a lot of trauma survivors already come with a lot of, they're very vulnerable and very ins- I don't want to say insecure, they just don't know how to manage certain things, so they are very easy to be manipulated. And I think it's important that people understand that as trauma survivors, we are vulnerable to being manipulated, to being gaslighted, to being utilized. And it's because we we don't know. We're lost and we have
We
been
were
hurt
right. We were
before.
taught to not hear our inner voice, to not believe what we saw, to not say what we experienced. We were strongly encouraged not to do that.
Yes.
And look at the consequences if we did say something. Denise, you've just described one very common response if a trauma survivor spoke out. You spoke out to people that were, now we would call them mandated reporters.
Right. But they
People
weren't
that are,
mandated yet.
they weren't, but they were in a position of trust, position of being adults responsible for children's well-being. And you told them, you told your phys ed teacher, and who else
I
did you
told
tell?
a priest too, Father Varney, I remember. I
Father
told,
Barney.
yeah, I told Father Varney, and he just ignored it also. I think he was a perpetrator himself, though. Not to me, but I mean I think that Priscilla was right. That's why some people don't respond, because of their own indiscretions.
Mhm. And I think that this is coming out now, but I believe this continues to happen in a lot
Yeah,
of the cultures, because even like I have seen news of stepdads sleeping with their stepdaughters, and their uncle sleeping with the niece, and the niece feeling like she needs to protect the uncle. Like, I believe that behaviors in um, inappropriate sexual relationship continues to happen. And for somewhat, we have conditioned our mind to believe in some cultures to think this is okay. I even think like even and we see also this a lot also when it comes to domestic violence. Women are afraid to speak.
yeah.
And both behaviors in a person are traumatic, and it has proven, scientifically proven, the amount of damage it creates in the brain, that I don't understand why the law or why this is not spoken more often. Oh, yeah.
Talk about the law. So I want to say this. I always drop my teeth and my heart gets angry when I can tell you this fact about the law in the United States of America. Until 1993, in America, a husband could rape his wife
Mm-hmm.
and there was no crime. There were states where a husband could rape his wife. The Supreme Court of the United States said a man's home is his castle. It's only maybe 100 years since women and children were called chattel. And you guys know what chattel means. It's like sheep, it's like cows, it's like possessions. We were the possessions. We were the possessions. And what you say about cultures is fascinating because I come from a culture, very Catholic, very island, very patriarchal. And in patriarchal island cultures, I think that there is more of a likelihood that sexual abuse, male to younger woman and to spouse, is going to be acceptable because the patriarchy says you can do whatever you want,
Take what you
whatever
want.
you want to do. These people are not, take what you want. These people are not people. Have you ever felt like that people are looking at you because you're female and you're not a person?
Yeah.
Mhm. A lot.
Mhm.
Just look at ancestry.com. They have statistics now of states where incest is more prevalent.
Wow, talk about that, Denise. What did you find out?
It was an article about it that, that it's if ancestry.com shared how many fathers and daughters have children together, it would be an outrage. But again, they're just allowed to take what they want to take, which includes our innocence, our intuition, all our good qualities, but we can take them back.
And
The
it
threat.
becomes more
Go ahead.
scary. I'm sorry. It becomes more scarier when you see um, that they're not investing in what adversity looks like. They're not investing in understanding what it does to our nervous system and how it impacts us today, how it continues to impact us today, and how it's going to continue to impact us tomorrow. And I tend to believe that it's convenience for the system to have us in this fog of lack of knowledge. And I tend to believe that this is why sometimes we're not being represented the way we should, or it's just superficial just to say we did something, but the work is really not happening. And you could see this happening in our health system, in our educational system, and the government, and even in the between the police, the Department of Children and Family, and school. There are already silos happening that only the people that may understand somewhat of the systems are able to identify the real challenges we're really facing. Meanwhile, the community continues to feel lost, unheard, or feel like it's the norm. They don't know.
Right. Yeah. Schools are not designed for children's best interest. Schools are not designed for what's best for our future community members. Schools are designed for control, power over adult convenience.
Schools are designed to teach people how to fit in. Schools are not designed to teach people to speak out. And only the rare school helps a child have a conscience or a voice. This is why I chose early childhood education, because it's one of the few fields where children have teachers who are willing to help those children find their voices. Then the
Right.
kids go off to schools.
Yes, it was
Yeah.
early childhood is hello.
Hi, sweeties.
No, he left already. I thought it was my husband. He's bringing me
Oh.
coffee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, early childhood was the closest thing to child-centered, and that is what drew me to it. Not because when I walk into an elementary school, I get this vibe of power over, of
Yeah.
everybody must be in control. It's
Guys, when I walked into my first teaching experience, 1968, 1969, English teacher, high school, Charlotte, North Carolina, big inner city school, all black school. I'm the only white teacher. Head of the English department says to me, your job is to keep these kids quiet. They're not good students. They're not going to be good students. We don't want them to be causing trouble. So you read to them. And I'm dying inside. I'm thinking, oh my God. And then I say to her, I'm trying to think of how can I be respectful to this woman because she's talking about her culture,
right.
not just about this school. And so I say to her, I understand. I hear you. I hear what you want me to do. And if I can engage the students so that they're learning, but they're not being disruptive to the rest of the school. Would that be okay with you? And she said, well, that's not going to happen. And I said, well, okay, no, I hear you that you've not seen it happen. But if I'm able to connect with them and get them engaged in their learning, are you okay with that? Well, and that's what happened. But it broke my heart because these students were almost my age, many of them. Some of them had been in jail. Some of them were on the streets. They had faced and were facing all kinds of stuff. They were brilliant in terms of life experience. They needed somebody who could hear them and different ways in which they can express themselves because the typical white English wasn't going to cut it for them. They were
Especially
brilliant.
writing it.
Oh God, right. So we did all kinds of performance and talk stuff, and it was so powerful. And I had to watch myself because I'm like 22 years old. I've got kids come and want to live at my house. I got an apartment. They want to live there because they don't have any place to live. I loved her so much, Rosalind. She would show up at my place. She would teach me to dance because she said, "You white people are pitiful." I said, "Okay, girl, you got a point." Yeah, she called it straight arm dancing. Were you straight arm dancing? So Rosalind showed me how to move my hips, honey. She,
Do you move them better than Shakira now, or almost
oh,
like
honey,
Shakira?
I did when I was in law school, girl. I took up belly dancing, honey. I had the moves. I had the moves. And why did I do that? Because law school was so white and so male. I couldn't stand it. I said, I gotta live in my body. So I'm like taking up performing. I'm performing belly dancing. But why am I talking about all this? Because back to the point of what does the society, you guys are both nailing it. What does society teach us? It says, shut the H up. It says, don't you even think that you're thinking straight. There's something wrong with your thinking. My father was direct about that. He would say to me, you didn't see that, daughter. You didn't see that. And I've heard other people told, you don't talk about this. You don't say anything to anybody else. And what does that do? It tells us don't even trust your own mind. As all of this awfulness was happening and unfolding in Minnesota, what did we hear over and over again? Trust your own eyes. But trauma survivors, talking about the brain, Priscilla, we're taught, you didn't see that. That didn't happen. And so what happens inside of our brains? I watched my mother, who I'm quite positive was an incest survivor. My grandfather was an intent alcoholic and I think a pedophile because he tried to hit on me. No one talked about it, but my mother's brain, she might once have been bright, but I watched the way she thought she could only think a little bit before she shut down. Because if she started thinking too deeply about something, it took her to grief, it took her to anger, it took her to feelings that she was not allowed to have. So when she became psychotic, I really wondered, is part of her mental illness because she had to shut herself down so much, or she was shut down so much from telling the truth that how do you know what the truth is? And I've talked with a number of survivors over the year that have something, and Priscilla, maybe you could tell us the term, that the term is something like, what it means is we don't know what reality is.
We don't know what?
We don't know what reality is. We don't know what's real. We can't believe our eyes. We were told to be quiet about it. I've had that a lot in my life. Like, I can see, I'm so good at seeing this point of view and that point of view that I can lose my own point of view in the middle of it. But it's worse than that. It's if we're being told this is the truth. Like, for example, Kristi Noem is saying, well, these people that are, this mother of 3 kids, she's a domestic terrorist. And that's what we're supposed to believe? If we didn't see the videos, that's what we would have been told. And our brains would have said, wait a minute, she's a mother of 3 kids. There's got to be something else going on here. So I think, honestly, for centuries, women and chattel, people that haven't had the direct amount of power, are told, you don't matter. We control you, which is Denise's power over everything. And the third thing you can't trust yourself. You can't trust yourself. And when that gets inside a kid, that destroys the child.
Absolutely. I want to share, and actually, maybe today I'm going to be creating an educational video about subconscious and conscious brain and what
Good.
it does, right? Because actually I've been reading this book. I can't think of it, but I think it's like the power of knowing the subconscious brain. And one of the things that I learned about it is that, which we always speak about how early experiences shape who we are, right? But I think it's important that we understand what happens in our subconscious brain when we have early childhood experiences and the things that it stores in our brain, like the subconscious brain stores that were not good, or it was we needed, we went through that, and it this. So when we have the possibility, our conscious brain, the person who wants to use the conscious brain, will defeat that, will challenge the subconscious brain, understanding that this is what happened to you, but this is not who you need to this is not who you need to be. And it challenged them to come out of their comfort zone and start knocking on doors. And I believe in part of what I've learned and why I love trauma, I love psychology and neuro, but I believe that why I love early childhood experiences, one, it reminds me of my early childhood experiences, and it all allows me to bring my inner child over and over again and talk about it. And two, it's so important for parents, for educators, for the village to understand that what we do and what we provide, how it influences these young generation. And but I this book has been very fascinating. And one of the things that I learned is that when you're speaking to somebody that that lives in their subconscious brain, they can stay stuck in that space. And it's very hard. Okay, well, you gotta give me a second. Here. One. Excuse me. Sorry. And this is what happens when kids don't go to school. We have a lot of snow, Denise, if you know. But so one of the things that I want to use, and it's like rewriting and recreating our narrative and helping people understanding how do we reinvent ourselves, and how do we do have the power to challenge that, and also even understand when some conversations are not even worth it. I think that sometimes as trauma survivors, we learn something, or we have overcome something, and we want to explain to people this is why we are, and sometimes people don't even want to hear that. And
They don't.
it can feel hard because we then want to become the savior, right? We got saved, we're healing, now we want to heal the world, and even that can feel uncomfortable to people like us. Oh, Holly, you're mute.
I think you're really onto something, and can you give us an example, like you're thinking about making a video? What's an example that you want to put in the video? Because I think you're talking about something that happens all the time. We know that something happened. I know that my
Yes.
father hurt me, but if I say anything, which I did, I said to everybody else in my family, if we tell him together he's got to stop doing this to us, that will
Yes.
make a difference. And every single female, which is all there was in my family, turned their backs on me. And
Yes.
I remember that. Remember that it was the message was shut up. We're not gonna support you. Holly. Shut your
I do
mouth.
remember one special kind of awakening thing, because you asked about did we have a saying or
Hmm.
a mantra or something that sticks
Well,
out to
yeah.
us, really helps us. But I do remember the first time that I came to that understanding of that I don't have to shut up. That shut up is not the right direction for me. And this was that moment. In my mind, someone said to me, I think in that group, that AOL group, uh, that you were the kid and all of them were adults. They were the adults and you were the kid. And I think that was real turning point for me that I don't have to shut up. You know, I never really did shut up about it. I always went on it. I
Me
always
neither.
did
I
bring it
still
up.
don't shut up.
Right. But I mean, they wish we did. My
Mhm.
sisters don't want me to bring it up. You know, my mom certainly doesn't want to. My brother, I'd love to tell him some things that I saw happen to him that were unusual, but he won't. No, they don't want to.
Yeah. So to respond to
Thanks.
Holly's question and also Denise, I think for people like us that, you know, one, we didn't shut up, right? And because we didn't shut up, I think that that's what makes us who we are, because we understood the power of speaking up, right? And I think that part of it, but it also, to make it fair, it probably took us a long time. I mean, I think it took me some time, even though that now I can appreciate that in every phase of my life, there was something valuable that I was learning and experiencing. Like if I, a lot of people, when I tell them I was a young mom, if I could be a mom again, a young mom again, I would do it all over again, because during those times, I raised my children as I was growing up. And one of the things that people ask me today is, you have such a wonderful communication with your kids. I mean, we were both growing. And but I think like it's fair for us to start explaining. And I think like when we're speaking about the nervous system and how we respond to stuff, if we, part of what I've learned in my sessions with family or even with people who have experienced or have sometimes like, I'm like that, like I'm starting to be like, that's your subconscious brain, and I get it, but that's your issue, and I'm not gonna continue going in there. And I think that part of it in the video of education that I want to share, it's like 95% of our brain, it's built and the way we respond to the world, it's because of our experiences. So we're going, you know, it stores our memories, it holds the beliefs that were implanted by our culture, and protects us from danger, and it controls who basically we are. And so we react automatically from a place of feeling like this is safe, right? And saying this is the voice, that this is how you feel. But then we have the conscious mind, who is supposed to think more logical, analytical, and it does decision maker. But you need to also have the willpower and create goals, because and part of all this is like the conscious mind, it's the voice that says I want to change, I want to do better, and the subconscious mind is like a little, actually I have Kermit the from Pinocchio. I love speaking to, when I'm speaking about conscious to the children, I bring, I'm going to bring him, not the cricket, I bring him. And I tell children how Cricket from Pinocchio tried to protect him by telling him, don't go over there. They told you, because Pinocchio from Disney did not have a conscious brain. So he had no malicious. And I find this very interesting because it helps children understand also, are you using your conscious to make good decisions? And I think that that's where my video is going to be at, because it, as I'm reading, I'm like, wow, maybe I think, and I feel like the more I read, I sometimes able to develop more the language to tell people, hey, this is really what's happening. And I feel like sometimes when we have certain ways to understand people, help them understand what's happening in our brain and why we are the way we are, it gets them like the aha moment.
I hear
And
you, sweetie. And when I think of the traits of trauma survivors, the first one that comes to heart and mind is we became people pleasers and lost our identity in the process. And I think when we talk about young children learning, how many of people listening and how many of us, what was our first experience in school? Was it ever about being curious and learning, or was it memorizing? And I'll tell you, my experience, I was measured by what I could memorize, but my learning was going on a pace. I mean, I was outside all the time, going in the mud puddles. I'm like watching the crickets. I'm like, I have every question on earth. My brain is so active, but there was nothing in school that helped me with that. So it's as if my child's brain, the preciousness of these babies' brains, like the little one behind you, like so many questions. And it's only in early childhood that the teacher will say, tell me more. It's only in early childhood that the teacher will say, hey, you chose purple and orange. I want to know more about that instead of you drew outside the box. So what I feel like is trauma culture, which is what we've got in the United States, taught us to shut up, to not question anything, to get in our roles, and to be afraid, to be very afraid. I think trauma culture continuously injects and projects fear into all of us. So I heard for years during COVID, during the elections, people would say, I bet you heard this too. I don't understand how we got this way. I don't understand how America did this. It's obvious to me. If we're afraid, we're going to not take risk. And look at all, we've got secret police now, we've got goons, there's more money in ICE than there is in any other justice organization. Now, come on. And if that's what we're choosing to fund, what's the message? Be afraid. Be very afraid. And that is the message that I, as a trauma survivor, got from birth. If you speak up, if you are yourself, if you have an identity, we will hurt you. That was true. We're going to hurt you. We're going to sexually harm you, and we're going to annihilate you. We're going to get rid of you one way or the other. Now, what happens to a child when she's under that kind of threat? One of the clinical psychologists, or one of the social psychologists I read said, to isolate a child is to put her on, you ready for this? On the pathway to madness. To isolate a child is to put her on the pathway to madness. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
And so if we threaten a child, if you don't fit in, if you don't act right, if you don't act like a lady, if you don't keep your knees together, if you know what, you're not going to have a family. We're going to disown you. My family, the island culture, literally disowned me. They disowned me. Why did they disown me? Because I'm like 19, I don't know, 20 something. And I decided I'm going to be a sexual person. Come on, I've got feelings. I can do this, Birth control was just coming out. But in the Sicilian culture, a woman has to be a virgin. And that means the man has control. You know that? The man has control. So one of my sisters was not a virgin either, but she was really zipped the lip. I was living with a guy and I told the truth about it. I did not see my parents for years. For years. I didn't exist to them. It's like my friend David, his father was a rabbi, and he married his high school sweetheart, Sandra, who is Catholic. And when they got married, his father, the rabbi, sat Shiva for David. David didn't exist anymore. It's that kind of stark cutting off of people and their identities that tells a child, be afraid. It's a culture that tells citizens, be afraid, and then we can control you. What if people weren't afraid? Well, guess what? Every time Denise and I, and you too, Priscilla, every time we go and protest, I don't feel afraid.
I felt afraid because who is it?
Excuse me, John Eric. I'm in a meeting. Sorry, guys. 1 second.
Who's there?
All right, go ahead, sweetie. Do what you got to do.
Yeah, 1 second. You guys can continue.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Denise, what were you going to say?
I forgot. I got distracted by the kid. What was our
We're
topic?
talking about, being afraid.
Afraid. Yes, that was my
Yeah.
thing. I had that on my sign for a couple weeks that don't shoot, after,
Oh, that's right.
and it scared me. Like I felt afraid holding that sign for those 2 weeks, but it was too cold to bring the sign in and change it. So I did it for another week. But, that just goes to show you that fear that power over control and that fear is never gone. You know, we live in the culture of power over. So,
Like a scab, honey, they can pick it and the blood starts coming out. That's a gross image. But what I was going to say is right in line with what you guys are saying, which is when I go and protest and I stand shoulder to shoulder with other people that are willing to get out in public and say, we don't want a dictatorship. We don't want ICE. We don't want people put in jail. Or we see Bad Bunny going, before I say anything else, I'm going to say ICE out. That gives me such encouragement that it lifts me up and it gets rid of the fear for a while. I
Yeah.
come home from my protests and I'm not afraid.
Can
I'm
I
not
share
af-
something?
Yeah,
Sorry.
please.
I have now that you mentioned, remember they're saying that Bad Bunny is gonna create a movie in Puerto Rico, and
Hmm.
it was Puerto Rico, right? So we
Yes, I
just
saw that.
learned, I just saw in the news today that the governor of Puerto Rico, which is Jennifer, I forgot her last name, but Bad Bunny's not allowed to do his movie in Puerto Rico because she is denying it.
Why?
She's a Republican. So I believe that there has to be something there because Bad Bunny brought millions of dollars to the Puerto Rico um, finance situation, and he brought culture and he brought awareness, and he's really advocating for Puerto Ricans to know who we are
right.
and
But that's
who
what they
little by
don't
little.
want. They don't want the general public empowered. That's what
Exactly.
they
First
don't
trade
want.
is
They want
we
us to
lost.
shut up.
Right, be people
Yes.
pleasers and lose your identity in the process. What Bad Bunny
They want
did,
him to shut up too.
Yeah.
right? Because he
When
helped people see it's good to be from Puerto Rico. It's good. It's
yes,
beautiful.
yes.
Look, here's the truth about it. And he raised, I mean, he got so much consciousness. What are they trying to do? Just what you said. I didn't realize she had shut that
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. And honestly, if we go into history, we also become empowered to learn our true identity and who we are, because I believe that we experience certain things for a purpose, and in those experiences we also find our purpose to advocate or empower, to teach. I always tell people it's in a situation like we may not know why it's happening now, but there may be a reason why. I'm pretty sure there's a reason why, and we just gotta. And because I went to school, I graduated, but not until I started. I want to say like here in Massachusetts, I learned history going by the to the Mayflower. I went to the oh God, I can't think of the islands right now. George's Island, Harbor. We went to I can't think of a town right here. Even in Rhode Island, every place when you go into history, you're able to see certain things. And in those things, like even I went to the Quincy
Right, he
church
said,
right here in Quincy
yes.
Center, and being able to see and understand from John Hancock and Adams and Abigail, it's beautiful. Like I'm able to now see with so much respect people that continue to hold their memory and speak about them. I remember in the tutor, when the lady was giving me the tutor about Abigail, she was like, she doesn't even get recognized the way she should. This part, she says, she advocated so much for women's right, and that is not spoken. Her letters were there, and it was just beautiful. And I really encourage people, because what I learned in my process of learning of history is that sometimes we get caught up on, and here we are saying things and we're not really saying it. We're saying it on he say, she say, or because it was taught on us. And I believe that in school they're going to teach us whatever our governor wants us to learn in the moment, but true history is not really being taught like it used to.
Well, what is the result we want of children who go to school? We want them to be obedient.
Right. And contribute to the tax collection.
Contribute to not rocking the boat. What if we
Yeah.
wanted people to be innovative? What if we wanted people to be creative? We'd have to deal with a whole lot of badass, sassy kids. Can we deal with that? Yeah.
We could, but we're not designed for that. That's why I say the schools are designed for, compliance, adult convenience, not for what's best for children and culture.
So, Denise, imagine that all those brilliant kids you had in Head Start, imagine that they kept going and getting smarter and smarter because people paid attention to them and let them be themselves the whole way through. What would have happened? What would those kids be like today?
I mean, our culture would be so much richer, full of art, dance, creativity, and not only that, but innovations that help health, that help aging, that help everything. I mean, you know, our knowledge can continue to change and grow if we let people be innovative.
And you're saying a very, very good point here, Denise. I really appreciate you saying this, and even Holly bringing it back, because one of the things that I believe it's culture is beautiful, but we need to know how to educate people about what culture is, right? I remember my son got spoken very hard last year by a teacher, and the principal tried to tell me to excuse the teacher. This is her culture. And I had to tell her, in my house, we don't speak like that. And it's not my son's responsibility or space for him to be okay with a language that he's not taught at home that can sound rude, disrespectful, and the tone is just out of character. Of course he's going to cry because we don't speak like this in my home. I'm not saying he's not, maybe he was too sensitive, but I'm not going to say he was too sensitive to something that made him feel bad. And she said to me, I apologize. I agree with you. And as a mother, there's been space at times that I'm now, I guess I'm being more known for what I do. So when I go spaces, people can sometimes recognize me. But for a lot of, I don't go promoting myself. I let people do what they have to do. But now that you're saying this, Denise, it just brought me back there because I think it's fair for us to educate people what culture is about. And I don't think I know in the African American, there's a ghetto, and even like there's a word named ghetto. And when I learned about the word ghetto, they don't even represent the word ghetto the way it was meant to be. When I learned about ghetto, it was more like, minorities, but they were humble, they were nice, their language was different, but it was never to be rough. And I think that people misinterpret that sometimes, and sometimes even feel like it's okay. And I don't know. Um, I know a lot of
Do you
my
mean like
daughters.
people, like teenagers saying I'm ghetto or
Yes, I will hear like, "Oh, I was raised in the ghetto, so this is why I speak the way I do." And
right,
ghetto came from, if I'm not mistaken, because I can't really, but it came from like the Africans, and it's a form of dance. And then when you go in the streets and dance with and they will call them ghetto because of how they dance, but it was meant to be beautiful. It was never meant to be identified as less than.
right.
And I think that because if we're born, like people will say, oh, I'm from Boston, so this is how I speak. No, you speak like that because you choose to speak like that, because you want to condition yourself to continue speaking like that. But it's not the way. That's not, for me, that does not identify a person. I feel like that does not identify the culture. Actually, I believe that our ancestor will be embarrassed if we continue to act like this, because because they always want what's best for us, not for us to stay.
Yeah, I was thinking about those when I was a young girl, we'd go to church, the Catholic Church, every day, every weekday at school, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. my first 3 years of school. And there was this group of old women, old women in the back. Like I remember one had a little shaky head like this. But I always knew that those women were back there praying for us to have a better future. I knew
Mhm.
it. I just knew it in my heart. That's what they were praying for. And I don't know how I knew it or why I thought that, but I believed they were praying for us to do better. And, we're not trying to be better anymore. That's
Exactly. Now we're utilizing the word culture and the word resilience to justify why we tolerate certain things, or why it's okay to tell people be resilient, you'll get over it. Why it's okay to deal with certain things. And we're utilizing culture to say, well, I'm from the Bronx, so of course I'm going to have that strong accent and I'm going to speak like this. And I'm from upstate New York, and over there we don't do this. And we continue to utilize the culture. And I come on the radio station on Saturdays, and one of the panelists shares something about a woman during Thanksgiving. A girl sent 47 pizzas delivery to her ex-boyfriend, and in the reading I read, typical Puerto Rican, loud and arrogant. He did not want to leave unless they sold him, unless they paid him the 18 kilos of crabs or something like that. So I sent a message, because the host is Dominican lady. So I sent a message and I said, I'm curious who wrote this. Like, not all Puerto Ricans are like this. And okay, do we even know it was Puerto Rican? And the guy got very upset because I shared my thoughts. And he was like, well, every Puerto Rican, it's like this. You should know this. And I said, not every Puerto My husband does not act like that.
not every anything we are all unique in our culture. Yes, our culture has, imbued us with certain beliefs and certain understandings and whatnot. But it doesn't make us all loud. It doesn't make us all rude. It doesn't make us all anything.
Yes. And when we say it, we're saying it's okay. This is how we are. So you have to accept me. No, I don't.
I think anything, whether it is any imposed identity, which says you have to be this way. You're a female, you got to be this way. You're a lesbian, you got to be that way. You're from New England, you got to be that way. You're Puerto Rican, you've got to be that way, is inaccurate and shuts down a person's individual self. I
Right.
think it's got to be a both and. I mean, my sense of heaven on earth is when every child and every adult gets to do what she's meant to do, and only I know what I'm meant to do. I have to discover it. Only a child knows what her gift is. She's meant to discover it. If somebody else is telling me you should, this is what you got to be, or because you're a Sicilian woman, you got to shut up, you got to do this, you got to do that. No, no. I feel like fear, back to what we're talking about in this program, if fear controls and the threat of being eliminated, the threat of being ousted, the threat of being not included is what controls people, then we're not going to be happy. Don't tell Bad Bunny he can't use his own country to portray who he is. It's who he is, but that's what they're telling him. And we know why, because it's too much power. Don't tell Denise that you can't be out there protesting every week because you're a lesbian. You know what? If we threaten you because you're a lesbian, you'll be quieter. You'll be more compliant.
It ain't
No,
gonna work, not on me.
right, right. And so there it is, my friends. I think what we've got going on right now is a lot of intimidation, a lot of threat, and every threat is the threat of death. And look what happened to little Liam. Remember weeks ago, little Liam, 5 years old with his bunny hat? That's a good bunny. And what happens to good bunny? They put him in a prison where he looks like he's going to die. Now, if that can happen to a 5-year-old kid, or or a nurse out helping somebody else on the street going to get shot to death, or a mother of 3 kids gets shot in the face, there's no question whatsoever. You better be afraid. And this is what we got to reverse, my friends. Trauma survivors are afraid because, Priscilla, you're right, our brains got trained. Danger, danger, danger. And in danger, we got to get out of there. We got to escape. No. When there's danger, I have to be prepared to make choices, to stand up for what matters to me, no matter what. And if we all start doing that, which we are, things change. So this is a big deal, guys, what we're talking about here. I want to hear your thoughts as we continue, as we end, because we need to end. Trauma is about keeping people controlled through fear. And our brains cave right into that. And the question is, can we change as trauma survivors? Can we walk each other home to a new path? I believe that's what we're finding out right here, right now. What do you guys think?
I think so too. I think we can change. We can find our voice. We can help others find their voice, even if it's only in that little 4 hours of safety or whatever it is.
Yes, I agree. I think that we have the power to know that we may not change everything that happens in the world, but we do have the power to make a change within us, that we can make sure we're safe, we're protecting each other, and we continue to have a voice.
And with that, my friends, we will see you next week, same time. Thank
See you
you
next
so
week.
much.
Priscilla,
Thank you.
There's a
Priscilla,
heart.
can you tell me how to change my name to my right name, my same name as see my name on there? It says Denise Roque.
Yeah. Do you want to stop recording, Holly?
Oh.
Yeah,
I
I'll
think-
stop recording. Okay, guys.
No, well,
Let
you
me
can stay
stop.
there, but just
Let me just stop.
yeah,
I will. I'll just stop
yeah.
the recording and stop recording.
Okay, so you